Yo, how's it going, guys? Michael Jerome here. I appreciate you clicking onto the video. We got one here today that comes by special request from a couple of you guys. I do want to give two quick shout outs. The first shout out goes to Nick Mintz. So about a month ago, I did a reaction to Lupe Fiasco's recent album, Drill Music in Zion, and that has been the most popular video on the channel. So if you're here from that video, thank you so much for checking that one out. It was a journey, man. I think that was only the second full-length Lupe Fiasco project that I really checked out, other than Drogas Wave. And gosh, it did not disappoint. I learned so much from you guys too. He wrote that in 72 hours. Are you kidding me, man? That shit was insane. But anyways, some of you guys recommended some of his other music in the comments. So first shout out goes to Nick Mintz. You recommended this as one of the projects. You recommended a couple others. I'll see if I can get to those as well. And then I also want to give a shout out to Licensed by Royalty. You gave a whole bunch of great songs for me to check out from Lupe, great projects. This was definitely included in this. You wrote this one in all caps, so I figured this is the best one to check out. But yeah, I really appreciate all the comments and recommendations. So all that stuff is great. But yeah, I've heard really great things about this album, so I'm really excited to give it a listen. As of right now, I've got Drill Music of Zion as my album of the year. There's been some close ones, man. I mean, that Denzel project is nothing to cry about. I mean, you also had Joey Badass with 2000. If you haven't checked that one out, there's a reaction on the channel. Another great album. But yeah, odds are if you're watching this, it's 2022 now. This album is it came out in 2015. So if you're here watching this now, I assume you know that Lupe is goated. His pen is insane. And with that being said, don't go too tough on me, man. It's the first listen. I've not heard any of these tracks before, so it'll be interesting to check it out. But like I said, take it easy on me. I'm not gonna catch everything. If I tried to catch everything, first of all, I wouldn't be able to. Second of all, this video would be 17 hours long, and no one's gonna watch that shit. So, but if there's a bar I like here and there, I'll pause it and give some of my thoughts. But yeah, man. So, I didn't even say the album. The album we're listening to, Tetsuo and Youth. Like I said, you guys really want to see this one, so we're here. So let's just skip the rest of the BS and let's get right to it. We got track number 1. This one's called Summer. This one sounds really peaceful. Alright, so that was the first track, Summer. It was purely an instrumental. I mean, I think the blatant thing is, they're on a beach, it's peaceful, children are laughing. Kind of interesting knowing that, the depth of Lupe, usually it's not, super lighthearted, so I don't know if that's more like a calm before the storm type thing, or if that's more just like setting the tempo for what it's going to be. Are we in for a peaceful and happy Lupe project? I don't know, man. I don't think so. But anyways, we got the next track. It's called Mural. This one's almost 9 minutes long. So we'll see what he has to say. It's a lot of time. I like those background vocals. Already. All right. So we're in this minute deep. About a minute of instrumental, very first bar. So he said, we're all chemicals, vitamins, and minerals, Vicodin with inner tubes wrapped around the arm to see the vein like a chicken on the barn. So basically numbing down. So humans themselves are all chemicals, vitamins, and minerals. And then Vicodin is like some sort of drug, right? I'm sure it's probably like an addictive drug that you inject in your arm. But then the wordplay on vein is insane. So obviously if you're injecting something in your arm, you're injecting into like a vein, which is like body part, blood vessel. And then vein, I think, is also like what's on top of barns, like the little thing on top of barns. I don't know how else to describe it. But then also the saying like in vain, like don't use the Lord's name in vain. And like doing drugs has a negative connotation, obviously. So that's in vain. Jesus Christ, man. Literally the first 20 words he says is a triple entendre. Like, I can't be asked to catch all these. You gotta be kidding me. 20 words in, I probably missed something already.
So what powers cowards to get them to the top, just to fall asleep, listen in the box.
Oh man. Oh man. That is insane. So what powers cowards to get them to the top just to fall asleep listening to Bach? So obviously Bach is the old musician, I don't know, German or something, classical. But then he's saying in the whole realm of the bar, like what powers or like what has people get to the top? So why do you put in all this work if once you get there you just fall asleep? You fall off. You stop caring about your craft that got you so far. And I mean that is really evident. I think, like I said, this came out in 2015. I mean, around this time, actually just before this time, that's when we saw this whole string of like mumble rappers, like, you know, Lil Pump, 6ix9ine, all these guys who rode these waves to get to the top. So it might not even apply directly to this bar, because this is saying like, but I mean, you put in all that work, you get to the top, and then, you know, you lose sight of your goals and you fall off. That's kind of where I see that saying. And also Bach is like chicken bok bok bok, right? Like that's the sound it makes, so it's tying in the previous bar. Dude, this is wild.
Now what's the coffin with a scratch ceiling? And what's the talking without the match feeling?
Oh, again, man. Okay, so he's saying here, now what's a coffin with a scratch ceiling? And that's the talking without the match feeling. That's burned living. So, I mean, there's so many meanings in this. So, I mean, you're in a coffin and you're buried alive, right? So to get out, you try to scratch the ceiling. And if you have matches, you can light a match to help you see. It gives you this false sense of security, right? But it's also burning the oxygen, because fire needs oxygen to actually burn. So in that false sense of security is actually killing yourself. Are you kidding me, man? This is... Dude. Gee, I can see where y'all saying that this is one worth checking out. I mean, just the density in the very first verse. Insane. I'm going to try not to pause it as much, just in an effort to actually get through the album. But just know that, you know, I'm not catching them all, but I do see like the cleverness in a lot of these lines. Like it's insane, man.
1 minute you playing pool, next minute you throwing darts. I run the gambit like I'm throwing cards.
Oh, I like that bar. 1 minute you're playing pool, next minute you're throwing darts. That's how you do with a party, that you throw in bars. I run the gambit like I'm throwing cards. So I mean, Gambit. So like, you know, that show came on Netflix a little bit ago, The Queen's Gambit. You know, I related to chess. And then also, isn't he like an X-Men character, I believe? Something related to cards. And then obviously the bigger picture of the bar, where he's like in a bar. I mean, these are things you do in a bar. You know, you play cards, you throw darts, you do this and that. But then also, what he says here, 1 minute you're playing pool, next minute you're throwing darts. So like playing pool is a very social thing. It's a very like friendly thing, right? Like, oh, you're gonna play a game of pool, you're gonna hang out with the homies. But then throwing darts is something like throwing shots almost, right? Like if you're throwing darts, I don't know, I might be pushing that one.
I prefer girls to rain all over the world, and not rain like Rain Man, or rain like Rain Dance.
The wordplay on rain here is insane, right? So he throws a bar about whether men, whether women. You know, a lot of this bar I think is sort of about empowering women, right? So then he says, I prefer girls to reign over all the world. So obviously, like, he's talking about weather, so rain can have the connotation as water falling from the sky, right? But then rain as in like rule over the world, like, you know, they're women, like, y'all can reign over the world, man. y'all have power, y'all have a voice, y'all, you know, you can do this shit too. But yeah, man, just the density of this is wild. Fucking wild. My mind's low-key blown right now. Like, I do have the lyrics up right here, and I can't keep up. Like, this, love this shit. I'm gonna love going back to this as well, because I just know I'm gonna pick up so much more listen after listen, and this just gives us so much replayability. I like the beat. It's very, I don't want to say, it's not too stripped back, but it's stripped back enough to where, you know, his voice is clearly at the forefront of everything.
Relapsed in the detox, then he back like a heat pack on his kneecaps at the weak spot, cause he want what we got, like, yeah.
I'm gonna be honest right there. The second half of that verse where he switched up the flow, I didn't catch anything. I was caught up in the flow. That was really, he definitely picked up the pace on it, which is awesome to hear. Adds just a little bit of variability to the track, especially when you got something that's 9 minutes long. Definitely is needed. But gosh, the density, man, the density. Ain't no way you're gonna be catching everything in here. Like, there's so much. Like, right after you went through that whole Weatherman Rain scheme that I briefly pointed out, he went into Queens, like, you know, talking about Queens as in, you know, women, and then Queen as in the band, and then he mentions Bohemian Rhapsody, and, you know, just insane.
Like they porridge all watery, not scorching nor sorbity from the steel orbiting sorcerer sorcery coming down.
Dude, no, man, these rhymes. The E sound, I don't know how many. Okay, I'm just gonna look at this one bar. Poetry, Morrissey, watery, sorbet-y. I can't even say these were sorcery. Gorgeously, like, there's 6 or 7 rhymes and within 1 or 2 bars, like that's dude, I don't know if I have the mental capacity. I don't know if I'm worthy to be listening to this, right? Like, there's so much density in here. I'm obviously I can't even pay attention to what he's saying. I got caught up in the rhyme scheme again. We'll keep it rolling, man. My mind is blown already.
And I feel like a missionary to a clitoris, the water bearer air of traditions that I swear to never change my chair position or condition.
Hold on, man. I can't just walk past that bar. The wordplay and missionary there is in, you know, like the position, and then also like a religious figure, someone who I don't even know what they actually do, but it relates to religion. And then he ties it into the previous bars where he mentioned the Virgin Mary.
In the face with all my throwing knives, Sub-Zero guiding, hiding, writing in the pack as well.
I never really played Mortal Kombat like that, but I recognize those are Mortal Kombat characters.
Smarter science mixed with our odd alliance, a fairy tale. Or maybe just to pay you realize its realness. Defeat Samsara, achieves nirvana and brilliance. Yeah.
All right, that was Mural, which is the first actual track that had lyrics in it. In Jesus, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I caught maybe 2% of what was said there. It was that dense, like, seriously. So first things first, 9-minute track. I love how he didn't even have a chorus. I love how the entirety of these 8 minutes, aside from that little, like, 1-minute instrumental intro, was just him spitting. It was just him playing into his greatest strength, which is his pen and which is his rapping ability. He doesn't mess around with, you know, any BS choruses. He can sound good on choruses, don't get me wrong. I mean, he sounded good on a lot of them in Drill Music and Zion, but just purely him, like, spitting. This might be one of his greatest tracks, honestly. Like, and I feel like I can say that without even knowing what he's saying half the time. 98% of the time, excuse me. I mean, I've been recording for 30 minutes to get through 2 tracks, one of which was just an instrumental. I had to stop and just try to keep up and give some thoughts, but like, this is insane. You know what? This is gonna be a separate video. It's only the 3rd popular track, but I have a feeling this is gonna deserve its own video. Like, this is insane. I mean, some of my general overall thoughts of the track, I keep trying to bring it back to the track title being Mural. He doesn't really mention mural in the track, other than there was that one bar about Chicago, like spray painting, so like graffiti on walls. So it might relate to that. But I think the biggest thing here is that, I mean, it's just him spitting for so long, so many lyrics, so many words. Like, he's trying to paint a picture in our heads, and it's one that I definitely don't have yet. Like, not on first listen, ain't no way. But yeah, I think that's the concept of the track. And I think that, I mean, he obviously talks about a whole array of things. I mean, he talked beginning about, you know, just really clever lines as it relates to, you know, rappers. He made that line about vain. So, I mean, humans all being these chemicals, we put chemicals in us, we do that in vain, relate that to chicken. Like, it's just bar after bar after bar after bar. And they're not all interrelated, but I think it's overall just like painting a picture of what we can expect for this album, and that is lyrical dominance. I mean, this is wild. I don't know what else to say. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna have to listen to this at least 20, 30 more times before I'd be able to actually like review this. Like the density of this is just insane. Real quick, I'm gonna pull this up. Like I just look at Genius right now. Look at Genius. Everything is highlighted. Everything. Like, what the fuck, man? Well, that's so great too, because I mean, it just goes to show, like, if you actually create a work of art that is super dense like this, like, it can actually be studied, and you know, there's great value in it. And obviously there's value in here. I mean, you saw those comments, like, people are finding all this stuff within his lyrics, and you know, that's only going to come with many, many listens. So the best I can say right now is that I love that track, and I can already tell that may be one of his greatest tracks he's ever made, honestly. Like, my mind is blown. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Well, I hardly know how to move on from that. Like, I just feel like I feel overwhelmed, honestly. Like, the density of that track was, I feel like, beyond my comprehension. And you know, I've been listening to hip hop for I don't know how many years. My mind is blown. So we're just gonna keep it going. I'll keep going with my mind blown. We'll go on to track 3. This one's called "Blur My Hands." Ooh, it sounds good. Isn't there one blockbuster left in the entire like world? Gosh, it was crazy. I remember there being a blockbuster like 5 minutes from where I grew up. Like, they were really everywhere. It's insane to think about, like, how quick times can change. Like, now streaming services are the thing. I wonder what's gonna be next. Like, I don't know, but I mean, that turnaround from Blockbuster running everything to being obsolete seemed to happen so fast. And it might just been like the time where I grew up, because like when I started to like understand like what that sort of shit was, like, it was already gone like that, which is wild. And it really means I'm number one. Oh. That's a really cool message in the chorus. I mean, obviously the old man is flipping him off, the middle finger, but he's flipping that like, hey, I'm not gonna pay attention to you, you're just a hater. And imagine that as saying that he's number one. Meaning like the best. So that's clever. It's a clever chorus. Similarly, can't mix matchsticks with viruses. Only you can prevent what I do. Only do can prevent what's my view. That is funny. Similarly, can't mix matchsticks with force. Only you can prevent what I do. Only do can prevent what's my view. Well, I laughed at the only you can prevent what I do. So like Smokey the Bear saying only you can prevent forest fires. I just thought that was funny because, you know, I live in the northern part of the United States, and if you go to the northern part of my state, you get to like a wooded area, woodlands, a forest essentially, and you see Smokey the Bear all over. So I just thought that was cute in that way. But I'm just reading on here as well. Wicker man, take a sip of liquor and spit the lip of warriors and spit flames. Man, I mean, that's double meaning as well. So I mean, you can relate it to what we were just talking about, like matches and forest. Like matches, you can start a forest fire. Wicker man, so like the wick of a candle. Take a sip of liquor and spit the lip of warriors. So if you spit liquor, it's like highly flammable. But then also on top of that, he says, and spit flames. So like if you spit the liquor on a flame, you're literally spitting flames. Like there's actual fire involved. But then split flames as in like rapping, like you spitting flames. You know, his bars are sick. Like, dude. Sitting in your car, just listening to the bars, and there's traffic on the ground, and you feel like falling down. Real quick, I mean, that part is so true. I relate to that. So sitting in your car, just listen to the bars, and there's traffic all around, and you feel like falling down, and the music that I'm spewing out enough to calm it down. How many of you guys, and ladies and gentlemen, how many of you just go on drives just to listen to music and to really not do anything else? maybe you make a BS stop to, pick something up, but the real reason you go is to, catch a break. I mean, I know I've done that, especially when back when I did live with my parents, like, and there's people around. It's just like an escape, right? It's one of the best escapes because you get to go see some sights. You actually physically get away, and then B, the music aids in that, and it takes you away in your mind as well. So like the car takes you away physically, and the music takes you away mentally, which I'm sure we all can relate. And Lupe is just outlining that here in this verse.
Yeah, I think you're number one, too.
All right, so that was Blur My Hands. Said a lot of what I wanted to say throughout the track, but in summary, the chorus sounded amazing to me. I actually really enjoyed that sound by Guy Sebastian, who I've personally never really heard of, I don't think. But yeah, good sounding chorus. And then, there's a good message behind it too. Like if you've been on the channel before, you've heard me saying, like, I hate choruses that are ultra repetitive, saying the same line over and over again, and that are not catchy. Like, that's my least favorite thing. This one had a message behind it, which is awesome. I mean, just saying, oh, you're flipping me off. You're actually just being polite with your hands. You're saying that I'm number one, which is a really great way of just saying that, hey, like, don't pay attention to the haters, and flip their hate into motivation, flip it into something good, which I think is awesome. But I mean, in general, this is kind of a complete opposite from the previous track, where this one is kind of follows your standard, like what you would expect a song to be, where you got your 3 verses, you got a catchy chorus, and it all sounds good. But yeah, all in all, good track. Enjoyed so far. 2 of the 3 are going on playlists, and the only one that isn't was just an instrumental, so there's no misses so far. That being said, we'll move on to the 4th track. This one's called Dots and Lines. Interesting instrumental on this. Not what you'd expect.
Go straight, don't sign.
I think it's a bar on the word sign. So he's talking a lot about geometry here. So sine, like sine, cosine, tangent. So you have the math connection there. And the way you go straight, don't sign, sounds like don't sign with a label as well. So like SIGN. Is that how you spell sign? I don't know. I had to work today. Don't judge me. But yeah, and then saying like in a line, so another like geometry sort of reference, but also like in a line is saying how so many artists do that, like they're in a line queued up waiting to sign to these labels, and he's challenging that, like, hey, don't do that, go straight, don't sign. Another great chorus. Wow. It sounds great, and there's a lot of good meaning to it.
We can make pie if we don't fit you. Exhibit, pimp my ride.
Pi is on like 3.14 too.
Less than unconditional is so under Christian, it's unrepentant. The physical part
Oh.
of my church amidst the invisible arts of my work.
Oh, real quick, man, he's spin right here. Damn, dude. I mean, that is dense. I'm trying to, I make a point to include my faith in my videos, and as a Christian, whenever I see that in music, I try to pause it and sort of unpack. This is one of the more difficult ones, though, I have to say. So he's saying that's bad. So, I mean, obviously, there's been ties to the whole track to math and geometry, which is really cool. I mean, as a nerd myself, I appreciate that. But he says, and that's bad curricular to the unconditioned. Any level less than unconditional is so under-Christian. It's unrepentant. So, I mean, obviously, as in Christianity, you're supposed to love unconditionally and, forgive unconditionally. And anything less than that, I guess he's saying, is you can't repent from that. Like, you have to do that at all times. The physical part of my church admits the invisible arts of my work. My church, so he says, like, his body is his church, I guess, and admits the invisible arts of my work. So I guess that might be like relating to the Holy Spirit, where the effect of his work meets the fans. So like physical rapping is the physical part of his church, and then the messages behind it spreads, and that's the invisible acts of his work to his fans. Man, I don't know. Y'all can help me out with that one. But that's fire. This is dense, so dense.
The truth be told, it's the pursuit of gold that turns the gold of men into trash.
It's true. Chasing money.
To see yourself, just look at me and split your reflection in half.
Ooh, that's a cool bar to end the verse there. So I guess one of the easier bars, at least that I could at least pull out of here, was pursuit of gold. So, the pursuit of the bag, trying to get the money, right? So this is interesting. So he was just talking about his raps, right? So I tried to understand what he was saying the physical part of my church amidst the invisible arts of my work. So the invisible arts of my work, I interpret that as like the effects that his raps have on the world, right? So then immediately after that, he says, to make gold from garbage is not the alchemy, whatever that tense of that word is, alchemy, point of this math. But truth to be told, it's the pursuit of gold that turns the gold men into trash, and the soul's gold that they're turning gold into cash. I think this is primarily talking about the record labels again here. So obviously I don't know all the details with Lupe's relation to record labels, but I do know for a while he was putting out very mainstream stuff. I mean, I've heard The Show Goes On. I know that was one of his most popular songs, and obviously the depth of that there is no depth compared to this. Like, this is miles above. But I mean, he's saying so. And alchemy is like the study of turning anything into gold or giving value into anything. So he's saying that maybe the labels are trying to force out like those crappy, just run-of-the-mill type tracks that, get streams. But I really like that line where he says, that turns the goal of men into trash. Anything that you do, you try to look at the underlying like purpose of it, right? So like, why are you doing this? Music typically is to spread a message or, provide entertainment or something along those lines. But when you flip that goal into making money, you've tainted the whole process, the whole creative process that turns the gold men into trash. In turn, you're sort of replacing your soul's gold with the gold that's turning into cash. That's the best way I can interpret it. I don't know if that's right or not, but regardless, I mean, the depth in this track, again, I mean, these are 3 straight tracks that I almost have a headache already trying to keep up. Super deep stuff, and this album has been insane so far. Next up, we got a shorter track again. This is track number 5. This one's called Fall. It's probably going to be another instrumental, it sounds like. I'm trying to figure out the meaning behind it, though, because this one sounds really playful again. Alright, so that was Fall. I do want to mention my best interpretation so far of the instrumentals. So very first track, Summer, was an instrumental, and this past track, Fall. They're both of which were very mellow. Both of which were very, like, they had children, like, it seems like playing or laughing in the background. So it's a very playful track. My best interpretation is, I mean, at least what I associate with those things is either A, freedom, or B, innocence. So far, as it aligns to the 3 tracks that we listened to that had lyrics, I'd say freedom makes a lot of sense, right? So freedom from labels, freedom from haters. I mean, just freedom to do what you like. Because, I mean, obviously this is, from what you guys said in the comments at least, this seemed to be like Lupe's first step into the artist that he is today, where he's all about this really just dense artwork and dense lyrics. So I guess it definitely gives me that feeling of freedom, right? The feeling of, no worries. So that's my best guess as to the instrumentals and why they're there. It's also just nice to have a break from lyrics every once in a while too, especially on a project like this, where everything is so lyric heavy, right? And everything is so dense. And, there's double, triple entendres in every other bar. And, it's nice to get a break from just the constant, just poetry in your ears. So it could be as simple as that as well. But regardless, we'll go on to the 6th track. This one is called Prisoner 1 and 2. And this one's featuring Aisha Jaco, who in the comments, one of you said, I'll actually give you a shout out. Yeah, quick shout out to Polo Boy Prince, and also a quick shout out to, I apologize if I botched your name, Alisane. You both helped me in that last project, Real Music in Zion. There was a lady just like speaking some poems on the album, and I didn't know who it was. But you guys let me know it was his sister actually, and her name is Aisha Jaco. And again, I'm sorry if I pronounce any of these names, but I did some cool research about what she's all about and what she and Lupe have been doing. So I stumbled across this article actually, and I highly recommend you guys check it out as well. I'll try to remember to throw it in the description. But it just sort of explains the meaning of mural, and we see mural come up a whole bunch throughout his projects. I mean, we saw it in Drill Music in Zion. I think there's a track, I think it was called Miss Mural. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then also, I mean, we just saw the track Mural, which was, I mean, mind-blowing. I mean, that might have been his best track ever. But yeah, so, I mean, I just ran across this article when I searched it up, and it turns out there's actually an organization which is run by Lupe Fiasco and his sister Aisha, called Mural, which is magnifying urban realities and affecting lives. And there's some really interesting stuff throughout here. I highly encourage you to read it. But regardless, I just wanted to give you guys the option to check that out. But it's really cool seeing, artists who have gained a bunch of popularity, who've gained a voice, and who've gained some wealth to be able to use all those things and help empower people and actually put action to their messages, which isn't necessary. I mean, just rapping or spreading messages is super powerful, but when you put your own money and put your own time and effort into something, I mean, that just shows truly how important it is. So I just felt that was worth mentioning in here. But yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the track. Apologize. Prisoner 1 and 2. Oh, real quick. I'm gonna run back that verse, but the way that beat came in was so aggressive, and I really enjoyed that sound. I'm a bass head. I love my bass. I love my kicks. So that sounded good.
Reaching to a rabbit, pull a trick out. Preaching to a faggot with his dick out. Hard times call for time.
Real quick, again, he mentioned, so he said, reaching to a rabbit, pull a trick out. Preacher preaching to F word with his dick out. I've noticed that Lupe also mentioned this part about preachers in Drill Music in Zion. And I also, another shout out, sorry, I want to appreciate all you guys who leave comments on my stuff. 414 Mal 412, shout out to you. You let me know that Lupe is actually Muslim. He is not Christian, though he does talk a lot about just religions in general throughout his albums, which I think is really cool. I mean, we heard him talk about Judaism earlier on this album in Mural, I believe it was. But he also talked about this on Drill Music in Zion too. I forget which track it was. But obviously this is an issue in Christianity. I mean, obviously in the Bible it says that homosexuality is a sin, and then at the same token we have priests and preachers who do some very heinous things, and he says it right here, the cases where they touch children, and it's horrible, bad stuff, right? And here he's sort of pointing out the hypocrisy, I guess, right? Where, you preach this stuff. You're literally a preacher, but yet you do these things. So he's sort of speaking the hypocrisy of this. The one thing I'd like to interject there as a Christian is saying that, unfortunately it is an issue, and it's one that should be addressed. But still, to kind of, undermine religion in that way, it doesn't make me feel the best. I mean, obviously, it's run by people, and people are flawed, and that's part of the difficult parts about spreading the religion is that like the idea that each and every single one of us are sinners, and that each and every single one of us falls short is something not to be undermined. And it sucks, man. It's a tricky situation because it's the worst thing ever. It shouldn't be the highlight of the religion. Like, there's so much good that comes from it, that it really does suck that is one of the biggest things that people talk about. I don't know if any of that made sense. I might have just been talking on my butt. I felt like I had to pause and speak on that.
The new lane lead them to the same pen, and the hunger strike bring them to the same 10. And hate is habitually accelerating terror.
So I'll speak about the track itself now. So obviously it started with the prisoner, the inmate call, hey, press 1 to accept it, press 2 to decline it. So I mean, this last line in the verse here: new approach might help me bowl better. New hose might help me hold together, or will a new lane lead them to the same pen? The wordplay in these lines here is insane, right? So obviously he's making an analogy with bowling, right? So a new approach in bowling, your approach is the steps you take up to when you release the ball, right? But then also a new approach in life, so taking life differently to make better choices, right? Then he goes on later and says, or will the new lane lead him to the same pen? Which is insane. So pen sounds a lot like pin, right? So bowling, you're bowling, you knock down the pins, right? And then pen is in penitentiary, so the prison, and he's calling from a prison. And then a new lane, so a new lane is kind of going back to the new approach sort of thing, right? So taking a new lane, taking that new approach versus a new lane as in a new bowling lane. And then hunger strike, strike and bowl. Just clever stuff, man. That's what, 2 bars, and you make such an analogy, and with so many different aspects of it making sense. Wild. This must be Aisha. New Jim Crow is actually a book I read in high school as well. Okay, this has a very bitter, viewpoint on the issue, right? This is the opposite from before. This is a different viewpoint. So he's saying, you better watch these people. If it was up to me, I would never unlock these people. Wouldn't rehabilitate, man. I'd just box these people in, throw away the key. And this is something that you hear a lot too. I mean, to an extent I understand, right? I mean, if we're talking about someone who commits murder after murder after murder and has killed many people, I mean, is there redemption there? And that's one place where my faith tells me yes, there is. Everyone has a chance to redeem themselves. Everyone has a chance to be forgiven. But then it's hard because you hear this mindset, right? And people absolutely do believe this, and people believe it in a far harsher sense than what I'm talking about, where I'm saying someone who's committed many, many murders and is showing that they're really dangerous to society. I mean, there's some people who think that just a basic crime, once you blow your trust, once you commit a serious crime, that's it. You've had your chance and you should be in prison the rest of your life, or even worse. And that's a whole separate issue about the death penalty. But it's just a very flipped viewpoint from what we got the rest of the track. So we'll see where he goes with it. Real quick, just a couple of things from that verse as well. So I think this is coming from the perspective of the prison guard, right? And This is a couple of things that you hear a bunch. One of the notes was being jealous. So like, you hear this a lot, like, oh, well, prisoners have it so easy, right? Like they get all food, free shelter, and you kind of, I know I've heard people joke around like, oh, I might just commit a crime just so I can live for free and live easy like that. So I meant that, and then also like giving a rationale for why he's treating the prisoners like that. It's just interesting stuff here, and another really dense track. I love these tracks where you get perspective like this.
I throw away the keys, I throw away the keys, I throw away the keys. Better watch these niggas. On God.
All right, so that's Prisoner 1 and 2. Again, just insane depth in that. So that was a storytelling track, and it had two different perspectives on it. And he had the first couple verses, which were of the prisoner himself or herself. I assumed it was himself. And then the second half of the track, which was coming from the perspective of like the prisoner guard, it seemed like. Regardless if that's right or not, I mean, there's the analogies he makes from the prisoner to bowling, to God, and then just the mentality of either the prison guard or whatever that perspective was supposed to be, was just the creative element to it is wild. Another track I absolutely enjoyed. I've not heard a single track on here that I've disliked so far. At this point, if you've enjoyed the reaction at all, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. All those things really help me a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. How's it going, y'all? I just took a quick break. My camera's cooled down now. My head, I let it rest for a little bit. This thing is dense as fuck, but we're going to keep it going. We left off on Prisoner 1 and 2. It was a long 8-minute track, but gosh, that one was crazy. Just the two perspectives of, the first one being from the prisoner, and then the second one being from, I don't know if it's like the guard or the correctional officer, some sort of worker in that sense. But, it was wild. I mean, Mural blew my mind. I am going to do a separate video from Mural, but jeez, man, I don't know if my reaction was even good. I was just mind blown the whole time. And we had Blur My Hands, which had a little bit more of like a poppy feel. It had a good sounding chorus, But yeah, I'm really enjoying this first half. It's not even, I didn't even get halfway. I recorded for like an hour and a half for 6 songs. That's just how crazy dense this shit is. But I'll stop talking. We're gonna get back into it. We got track number 7, which is called Body of Work.
$3,000 son, she just wanna love her and somebody else to come and try and drug her.
Ooh. Stop. This is an interesting line right there. So from the guts of the mother, Campbell should move her undercover with $3,000 son. She just want to love her. Well, I mean, the obvious one I see is $3,000 son. So like, children are expensive, man. Hospital. Jeez, if I ever get hurt, do not call an ambulance for me. I don't care how much it is, because even if I live, I'm going to be in debt the rest of my life. That shit is ridiculous. Like, they cost thousands of dollars to just fucking call an ambulance if something crazy happens, which is stupid. But yeah, I mean, even the cost of childbirth, they just to be under medical care for that long, it just costs an insane amount.
Flags at to death, flesh, release the leash on the fast car. Feet on the keys.
Those rhymes are tough right there. Ooh. Oh my goodness, man. Man, that bar at the end there about skimming through it, I think that pretty much just sums up like what I'm trying to do with this album right now. Because I mean, I think that was pretty easy to understand. So skimming the surface of something is like, just like barely understanding, like it's just the tip of the iceberg. But then like skimming like the skin is like, it's like actual like getting cut up, or like when you fall on concrete or something, you skimmed your knee, something like that. But geez, I feel that right now, because a lot of these bars, like I'm not catching them, and I'm trying to keep up. I can't. This is that deep. But I mean, as I'm going through it, I'm looking stuff up, and I'm checking out Genius. Like, I saw he had one super clever line that I wouldn't have caught if I wasn't on Genius right now. That 14 broads line. I guess that's a reference to Shakespeare, of all people. In Hamlet, I guess there's a character whose name is 14 Bras. 14 Bras. So the wordplay on that is just fucking ridiculous. 14 broads, like the king of Norway, which is a reference to Hamlet. And then he says 14 broads having dreams of foreplay. So like if you're a broad or a stripper or a prostitute, usually it's just straight to business, you ain't really messing around too much. So dreams of foreplay, like, the foreplay isn't a normal thing, But yeah, man, I'm just the depth of this album. I know I've said it a bunch already, but it's incredible. My mind's still blown. Yeah, man. Well, we'll go ahead and get to the 8th track now. This one's called Little Death, and it's featuring Nicki Jean again.
They keep the bottles just to make glass houses, then climb up to the second floors and throw rocks out it. What of the chicken? What is it missing? Is it dry? Did it die in some inhumane condition?
But how shitty would it be to live the life of a chicken, right? I mean, have y'all seen the pictures of, like, some of those farms, man, where the chickens are literally, like, basically piled on top of one another? Like, a small part of me feels really bad, but then there's the other part of me that just loves chicken so much to where, like, hey, if that's what you gotta do, man, that's what you gotta do. But I mean, also to get caught up in these moral dilemmas like this. I mean, there's so many things that can get, like, fucked up from, the time that the chicken is born to the time it's on your plate. Like, you're only worrying about one aspect of it. Like, I mean, just think about, well, are the farmers being treated rightly? Are they getting paid enough? Like, they're grinding all the time. Think about transportation, like the egg, like the trucks or airplane or whatever, the trains, whatever it is to get it from point A to point B. Are those people, are they underpaid, underappreciated? Do we even talk about that at all? No. And what about the grocery workers who, people often just mistreat too? I mean, how many times have you gone to a store and it's usually it's an old woman, a Karen, right? Who's just giving the cashier a shit time. And it's like, bro, like, this person isn't here to, deal with your BS. Like, it's a store for food. Like, buy your food. Stop complaining. You know what I'm saying?
How is your memory? Is it returning like a lemon tree to bear bitter fruit of what you meant to me? Or is it slipping like a...
Man, that one line was nasty right there. How is your memory? Is it returning like a lemon tree to bear bitter fruit of what you meant to me? Man, I'm weird, all right? I kind of like lemons. Like, I've legit just, like, taken bites out of lemons, and my friends look at me like, what the fuck are you doing? Nah, I like my sour stuff. But when you bite a lemon or you lick a lemon, what do? You make the weird sour face, right? How's your memory? Is it returning? Like, you ever have a bad memory or, like, something that you've tried to repress? Like, I know I've got, like, a bunch of embarrassing stories, right? But when that comes back to you for some reason, you just remember it. What do? No. Like, at least I do that. So I don't know if that was the intention of that line, but I think that's super clever. Now, I haven't really looked at the chorus at all much this track, so let's take a look at Howl at the Day. Can I make you my prey? Because I want you dear. Oh, I want you dear. So the first thing I'm getting out of that is howl at the day. So when you think of something that howls, at least I think of a wolf, right? Because I want you dear. So I'm thinking the deer is in, like, the animal, the D-E-E-R, you know what I'm saying? Deer can be like D-E-A-R, like like a person, right? So I mean that can maybe be, just the want for someone, I guess, for, like, a relationship maybe. You make the other person your prey. You howl during the day because you yearn for them. You want them to be the prey, that you want them to be there with you. It is the best I can flip it right now. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. But, there's depth everywhere, man, even in a simple chorus.
Somewhere between amateurs and grandmasters of iambic pentameter.
Man. All right, so that was Little Death. I just got to say, I touch on the last line of that verse here where he says, we should have been poets somewhere between amateurs and grandmasters of iambic pentameter. I've kind of talked about this on this channel, and if you're watching this, you're into hip hop. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind where if you're on this video, odds are you know who Lupe is and you know what he's about, especially if you're this deep into it. But this just goes hand in hand to the idea that true hip hop at its core is his poetry. And, you know, there was this article I read a while back, and it was relating to Kendrick Lamar's To the Butterfly, right? And it was saying how, you know, it's being studied in classrooms and such. And, you know, he's one of my top two favorite artists. Him and Cole are my favorite artists. And Lupe's certainly getting his way in there. And I'd argue that this is far more poetic in that the depth of the writing is much more deeper than that of Kendrick or Cole. Now, Kendrick and Cole are more so in the storytelling lane, and sort of like the conceptual arts lane, versus this, which is I would consider pretty much pure poetry. Like, and he is a grand master of it. He's nowhere in between amateur and grand master. He is a grand master of poetry. And I mean, this shit can just be studied, honestly. Like, this could be in classrooms, man. The depth of it, what he's saying. I mean, there's good messages in it, the rhymes, like everything is there, everything. And you know, and the fact that there is such a stigma on hip hop to where, you know, people don't consider this poetry, or they write it off as something less than what it is really a disservice, not only to the genre as a whole, but to creativity of humans. And like, Lupe Fiasco is probably one of the most creative people that I've had the pleasure of listening to, and this one has blown me away, probably the most, if not the second most, behind Wave Files. Wave Files blew me away just because I never really listened to it. That was the first like Lupe track that I listened to that wasn't The Show Goes On. So I mean, now I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought I was going to get into like, you know, a very pop like record, you know, lots of choruses in it, this and that. That was not the case, and you know, this album is blowing me away. I will say the last two tracks are a lot more traditional, in that, you know, you have the verse chorus sort of thing going on, whereas, you know, we just came off of Prisoner 1 and 2, which was, you know, it had a choruses in it, but it was a conceptual track. You know, you had two parts to it. You had the prisoner, and then you're like the guard or the correctional officer, or whatever the case is. And then earlier we had Mural, which may be one of the greatest hip hop tracks I've ever listened to. So I mean, especially that one that had no chorus at all. That was just pure fucking 6.5 minutes of poetry if you exclude the instrumentals. So yeah, man, it's a bit of a rant. I don't even know if you got any value out of that, but you know, he's incredible. But I'll hop off my soapbox. We got track number 9. This one's called No Scratches, featuring Nicki Jean again.
In the sea, I know you in the seat, but let's get out of there before it's injury.
Okay, so let's talk about that first verse for a second. This one's probably one of the easiest to follow so far, I'd say. I think this is obviously an analogy to a relationship. First I had patience, I had energy, now I'm weak. He goes on to say, all your memories can become enemies, so let's intercede. I know that you're in the seat, but let's get out of that before it's injuries. So they're in a car, right? And he's saying, let's get out of this car before it crashes to avoid any injuries. And I believe that to be an analogy to, you know, a relationship. So I think a lot of times when a relationship ends, it's less of a one moment thing and more of a culmination of many things that built up over the past, you know, previous weeks or months, or whatever the case may be. And you can see the crash in front of you, and usually that comes in the form of like a final fight or a final act in the way of cheating or whatever the case may be. A lot of times you can feel it coming, and you're just like, okay, let's just end it now, before we both get even more hurt. Because you know, the longer you drag things out, the more it hurts. So I think that's where he's going with this track. This definitely seems like very much more accessible than a lot of what we heard so far. So we'll keep it rolling.
Get back on the pill. We in it for the feel. But even winners can earn the
And then just for the physical, and then for the feel. All right, man. So there's No Scratches. That was probably my least favorite on the album so far. I think that's definitely a weaker one. And you know, it wasn't super bare bones. I mean, there's still an analogy that he used, which is great. But I mean, when you compare it to just the greatness that we've had before that, I mean, I don't think it compares. I mean, I think I was pretty much able to keep up with it the whole time, and you know, off of first listen, and the rest of the album, I've been struggling to keep up. So I mean, I think that just speaks to, you know, the accessibility of this one. which may not necessarily be a bad thing either, because maybe your typical person isn't really going to like this super deep songs where it's nearly impossible to keep up unless you're legit studying it like I'm trying to do as I'm reacting to it. So I get it's a switch up in that way. So I mean, there could be value in that. But at least from my perspective, that's one of the weaker tracks so far. But regardless, we'll go into the next track, track number 10. This one's called Winter. All right, so that was Winter. It definitely had a very winter's feel in that, you could sort of hear like winds howling. It had a lot more suspense to it compared to the other ones. There were no children singing in this one. But I mean, looking at those instrumentals we've had so far, we've had summer, the first one, fall, winter, and then if we look forward, we're gonna have spring be the last one. And the seasons are something that it's very easy to make an analogy of, but also I'm looking at the order of things here too, and I'm trying to see if there's meaning in that. Summer and fall, I'd say we're pretty much equally free. They were pretty much equally happy. There were children laughing in each. Maybe fall there was a little less, but I would have to listen again to actually hear that, see if that's true. But winter is the darkest, so perhaps in this area here of the album, tracks 8 through 13, or maybe the rest of the album is going to be more dark. But also, when you think of spring, you typically think of a rebirth, right? Or the greens return, flowers emerge, the grass becomes green, snow melts. So you think of something positive. So maybe track 15 will reflect that. But we'll just have to see. And like I said, maybe it's something with the order of tracks. I don't know how that aligns, if there's meaning in that. But I always enjoy thinking about it. So, and it's one of those things too where first listen, you're likely not going to be able to figure that out. You have to hear all the tracks, and then you can start thinking about the order. But regardless, we'll move on to the next track. This one's called Chopper, and this one's fucking 10 minutes long. So pray for me, man. Pray for me. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, so don't critique. Look at me, you how school won't educate for life. Oh man. Stop. First of all, I don't know who Billy Blue is. This is the first time I've heard of him. A real deep, raspy voice, which I think sounds good. But that line right there, that was dirty. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, so don't critique. Look at me, man. Just a young hood person trying to get this cake. I don't need to be giving out how school gonna educate. I'm so blessed in life, and I love to recognize my blessings, because I know I was put in a position where I still had to work my ass off, but I wasn't from ground zero. You know what I'm saying? I was able to go to good schools when I was younger, and yeah, I had to pay for college, but I was given the chances, of good elementary, middle, high school. All that was provided for me, and they're all decent quality. I was blessed with parents who were healthy and there for me. I'm blessed with awesome friends, and all these things are easy to downplay or easy to take for granted. Excuse me. And I always often think too, like, what if I didn't have that? Like, what if my school was horrible? What if I didn't graduate high school? I certainly wouldn't be able to go to college. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't have even gotten the job I had when I was in high school to pay for college. Just how these small things that are easy to take for granted when you have them, how that changes, and how easy it is when you have those things to judge as well, right? I mean, if you are well educated, if you have a platform, if money isn't an issue for you, like all these things are something that's extremely easy to take for granted, right? And then you kind of judge people who don't take your same steps. You're like, well, I did it this way worked for me. Why don't you just do it? It just doesn't work like that. So he's sort of saying here, like, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So all those blessings that you're taking for granted, that's a silver spoon in your mouth. So how are you going to critique when you didn't have the same situation? You didn't have to grow up in the same scenario that I did. And that there's truth to that. And it's something that makes me think. And it's a tough situation. Equal opportunity is a huge issue. And it's something that I know I think about often, especially in terms of the blessings I've been given. But yeah, real insightful lyrics here. Obviously, Not as deep as Lupe, but Lupe is world class. So, but yeah, I like this verse so far.
This is best for everyone involved. All in the Lord my weakness.
Real quick, I really like that line. Simple line. There's not depth to it, but you said, I just live my life and I don't stop grinding until God tell me to. I get money. I ain't gonna sell my soul. Oh, who the fuck is you? I really enjoy that. I mean, like, if you're new to the channel, big advocate of just grinding your ass off. That's I've gotten a lot of the stuff I have. I know that this may sound hypocritical from what I just said, but I kind of alluded to it before. I was like, I still grinded. I pay myself through college. I was lucky to be set up in a good situation, but it doesn't. I didn't get it all hand fed to me. Like, I still have to grind your ass off, and like right now I'm working my master's program for computer science, and I'm still doing this YouTube thing. Got a lot of other shit going for me, and I'm blessed for those things. But all that doesn't come without a cost. And I put that work in, I grind, and as much as I am blessed, I will say that I'm proud. I won't call myself prideful, but I'm proud of how hard I work and the grind that goes behind it, because that it just makes it mean that much more, if that makes sense.
Bad news, everybody open up some. You can move while you won't, just not sudden. It ain't no thinking I was playing, I am not run. The mentality of a goon, I am not stunned.
I don't know any of these rappers so far, but Trey the Truth, I loved his flow on this. Rhyme schemes was hard too, but his flow got real dirty about 3/4 of the way through that verse.
I'ma kill my daughter, she tried. Mighty silence, that bullshit, but a real
Oh man, the hypocrisy there, right? Like, you got strip a pole in my bedroom, but I'm gonna kill my daughter. She twerks. See, it's funny, right? It's funny, but ethically, it's fucked. Oh my goodness, man. That was just a clever little line right there. With a clean record, but I'm cursed to make a $500,000 off a verse. I think there's a couple meanings there, right? So, with a clean record, as in like he hasn't committed a crime, right? But I'm still cursed. And then he says, with a clean record, like the album itself is clean. There's no profanity in it. You can't really do that because he's cursed, in that he'll still make $500,000 off a verse. So I just thought that was clever. But yeah, man, this was chopper. Jeez, this is verse after verse. I thought it was pretty slick. I liked it. It reminded me a lot of what's that Big Sean track? I think it was Friday Night Cypher. I think that's what it's called. Basically, it's got like all of Detroit on it, and they're all just spitting big time. It's cool, man. I don't know if all these guys are from Chicago or what the deal is, but I liked a couple of them. I particularly liked Billy Blue, Trey the Truth, and Glasses Malone. I liked their rap voices the most. I think they had some nice verses on it. Obviously not the deepest. It wasn't like a concept one, but the slick line's all about, so I still enjoyed. Anyways, man, we got the next track, track number 12. This one's called Deliver. I believe this one's got the most I can't talk. I believe it's got the most streams on the album with 13.7 mil. So expecting big things here. Let's see what he's got. Oh my goodness. All right. So right on Genius, he tweeted out that he said, "What if I told you it's saying piece of man?" Is in 3 different words. I didn't even hear that at first, so I heard the literal pizza man, right? So that's the most obvious part about this, right? So it's a dangerous neighborhood, so the pizza delivery person chooses not to come there anymore, right? If it's a dangerous neighborhood, that means it's void of the peace, Peace, of man. Jeez, what a double entendre, man. I would not have caught that first listen. But hey, it's clever. So far, this one is pretty accessible, which is nice, and that may be why it has the most streams. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Let's keep it rolling. Ooh. Simple ones to pick up, but the wordplay is so clever, it's worth mentioning. So he says, of hate in a place where your ethnicity determines your placement, a place that defines your station. Remind you people your place is the basement. White people in the attic. People selling dope. White people is the addicts. Jeez, it just is a lot of perspective in that, right? So he's saying that ethnicity is one of the key determinants of success in America right now. Where the color of your skin and where you were born are two of the most important factors of your opportunities. If you're African American and you're born in a rough area, you start out in the basement, and then you see white people start out in the attic, which is the highest part of the house, so they start out much higher, or like I have a head start, right? But then later on, he goes, the people in the basement are selling dope, whereas the people in the attic are the addicts. So in order to make a living, you're selling drugs, which is like an illegal activity, right? But it's the white people who are on top who are the ones who are consuming it even. Dude, this flow, oh my God. Real quick, I don't live in Chicago, but I've been there, and Giordano's, oh my goodness, fire. If you ever find yourself in Chicago, go check out a Giordano's. Have some of that Chicago deep dish. I wouldn't say Chicago deep dish is my favorite type of pizza, but man, if you're in Chicago and you're getting the full experience, though, it's a must, man. It does hit different. All right, so that was Deliver. Another really clever track. Definitely more accessible than some of the other tracks on here. The main two I keep going back to are Prisoner 1 and 2 here, and then Mural. Again, that track blew my mind. But I mean, like, once you heard those, and once you have a taste of just the depth that he can reach, you can kind of tell where he holds back a little bit, right? Like, and I'm sure it's by design, because first off, the amount of effort that a track like Mural must have taken is beyond comprehension. Like, to make an entire album of that, I mean, that's something that would take like years, I would imagine. And it's something so deep to the point where I don't know if everybody would listen. So you need that variation. You need those Blur Your Hands that has just a really nice chorus to listen to. You need those like Chopper, where it's just, clever raps. It's not super dense, conceptual tracks. But Deliver was kind of like the best of both worlds, right? Where, it had a good sounding chorus. It had some depth to it, but it didn't go as deep as a lot of the other tracks. Which I think is why it has so many streams. It gives you the taste of what Lupe is capable of without making you go on a 5-hour excursion digging through every bar to actually understand what he's saying. I enjoyed the track, in short. I did enjoy it. With that being said, we'll go on to the next one. This one's called Madonna.
We come to you uncomfortable in our ways.
It almost sounded like Kanye right there for a second, didn't he?
What drags them off through those streets? In the whip with they soldiers, stations of the police.
Oh my goodness. As a Christian, I definitely catch that. So he's relating how police arrest people to the Stations of the Cross. Which is really slick. I've never heard someone do that before. I feel like someone would have thought about that. Maybe someone did. But yeah, that's really clever.
Died like Ricky on his mama couch, right there in his mama house.
Ricky! Boys in the Hood reference. Yeah, man. Another great track. All right, man. That was Madonna. I didn't touch too much during the track, but I really enjoyed the parallels he made, the analogies he made. I mean, I just point out that one with the police, the way they arrest people being compared to Jesus and how he carried the cross. But the real reoccurring one was that of mothers, and he mentioned Mary, I believe, the Virgin Mary throughout, and just kind of drawing that analogy, which was very unique. This is a very unique track, and I found it very interesting, especially coming from a Christian's perspective. And I know Lupe is Muslim. I learned from you guys. One of you guys commented, and thank you so much, because I did not know that. I learned so much from you guys. So let this be a reminder. Leave a comment. If I sound like an idiot, if you enjoyed something I said, let me know. And while I'm saying that, like, subscribe, all that. That's a given. Especially if you're this far. God, I have no idea how long this video is gonna be, but you're a real one if you're still here. But yeah, another great track. Just again, basically comparing the Virgin Mary and some biblical happenings to that of mothers in neighborhoods that aren't the safest. Whew. We are coming towards the end here. We got track number 14. This one's called Adoration of the Magi. I can't pronounce that. Yeah, if y'all are here from the Drum Music and Zion video, you know I can't pronounce anything. I think I've been mispronouncing the title of the album too. I think it's a Tetsuo. I think it's Tetsuo of Youth. I don't know. We're just gonna keep it rolling, man.
Narcissism on narcotics on sharp objects in large
Oh man, hold on. That first line there. You're so smart, you're like a contemporary museum of art. That farts, it's harsh, narcissism on narcotics and sharp objects, large pockets. He is incredibly smart, man. As we talked about, like, he's a legit poet. At least he knows it, man. At least he's confident, because this dude is built different for sure. Ooh, this sounds good. Ooh. Oh, hold on. Oh, man. Okay, that's fire. So, basically saying, well, the obvious one is comparing to a video game, right? So, video games, are 2 players. A is usually jump. B is like an attack button, right? Then it says, to be friendliness is in a nemesis. It's an old test. 3 buttons. See something that's emphasis on Genesis. Oh, yeah. So, it's really comparing life to a video game in here, right? How it's multiplayer. You have choices to make friends or enemies, and you have choices to jump together to rise up, or to press B and punch and drag one another down, which is interesting thought, and it's a really creative way to say that, to say the least.
First curse into your first cursive, and your curse words is in the curved version.
Oh my god, I do not know what he said, but those rhymes were disgusting right there. Person, first curse, cursive, curse version, like, oh my goodness, man.
Third verse who's really me in the third person, but prefers the first one.
Third verse is really me. It's just the third verse. Alright, that was Adoration of the Magi, whatever. My brain's starting to crumble. We're just going to go on to the next one. I like that track. It was good, clever. I missed so much. But, persevering. I'm not going to stop the third time. We're going to get through it. So we're going to the last real track, because I'm assuming Spring is going to be an instrumental. I could be wrong there, but, track length, it just makes sense. So this is probably the last track. We got They.Resurrect.Over.New. This is featuring Absol and Troy. I know Absol. I love Absol. He's one of the most lyrically gifted on TDE, I'd say. Well, Kendrick is gone now, so he may be the most gifted lyrically on TDE. But we never hear from Absol, do we? Like, when's the last time he dropped a project? It's probably been 4 or 5 years, even. Yeah, I always enjoy hearing some Absol. So we'll get into this track. They.Resurrect.Over.New. More video game references. There's been a lot of references to video games throughout. Hey, real quick. That was the first Lupe project I listened to. Drogas Wave, that is. I know there's Drogas' Light, I think it's called. I haven't listened to that one. But yeah, Drogas Wave. And, he really goes into depth on this. Don't ruin us, God said. It's one of the main themes in that. That album is phenomenal. But yeah, I plan on touching all the Lupe projects now after this. Like, he's just too great not to give that respect. And the pure skill, the pure poetry that he has on display, it's gonna be worth it. So, but yeah, I just saw that. I had to mention it. Drogas Wave. If you haven't listened to that album, one of the greatest albums I've heard, so go check that out. Dikembe Mutombo, 7-footer. That's just funny, man. BDSM dominated with no blind. Safe word is don't stop. Both or go no times. I mean, there's a bunch of meanings in that, right? So BDSM is like, the bondage, like the super intense whack shit that some people are into, and so dominated it. That goes hand in hand with that. Then he says the safe word is don't stop. So a safe word is like a word you would say to actually like stop it, like, hey, it's going too far. But his is saying don't stop. Which is hilarious. Tron, another video game reference.
in the mountain of power, to only find truth in the fountain, drowning in power.
Oh my God, hold on, that bar was too intense. So he said, give them all showers, till he found the fountain of youth in the mountain of powder, to only find truth in the fountain, drowning in power, surrounded with dollars. You know, one of the big things that I strive for, and one of the main emphasis on this channel was wisdom, right? Wisdom comes with a cost, though, and so does power. Like, if you understand a lot of things, it comes with sorrow, and this and that, and that has biblical ties to it as well. If you look at like I believe it's King Solomon, there's a certain sadness to it. And just the irony of this line where he's saying, you found truth in the fountain of youth, it's supposed to, bring back your youthfulness, eternal life, this and that. But you're drowning in its power, which is the wordplay that's insane to me, right? So like you're drowning. So when you drown, you're basically your water's going into your lungs. You're dying, but you're dying in the fountain of youth, which is supposed to give you eternal life. So it's just like a paradox there. And then, but you're doing that while you're surrounded with the ultimate power of like eternal life and the ultimate power of a shit ton of money. It's, dude, I can't anymore. Let's just get this over with. It's too good. It's too good. Here we go. Oh yeah, that's a common line right there, right? Shoot from the moon. If you miss, you'll be among the stars. Kanye does something similar to that. I forget what song, right? If you aim for the something, you'll end up in the clouds or among the stars. I'm stupid. I'm too tired. Y'all have to let me know in the comments. But Kanye has a line like that too. Lupe says I'm a stoner, smokes a lot of weed, but then the wordplay on stone to say that he's a boulder. So like a boulder is a huge rock. But then he's saying that I'm not a stoner, I'm bolder. Like I do like bigger moves than that. Like bold as in BOLD. It's dude, fire.
A matter of fact, is in the making, perhaps. Erase your database. We race against time, no time to set a date.
That was the They.Resurrect.Over.New. Another great track. Really enjoyed Absol's verses because we get so little from Absol. So obviously this is an old verse, but it's new to me. So I definitely enjoyed that. But yeah, another great track, real clever. We do got one last track. It's probably gonna be an instrumental. This one's Spring. So let's just get into that, and then I can give my thoughts at the end. Oh yeah, it's very uplifting, and you hear the kids again. The birds chirping. Oh yeah. Well, that was Tetsuo and Youth, however you pronounce it. That was a freaking journey. This has been probably 3.5 hours of filming, of just me stopping and saying shit. So I don't know how long this video is actually going to be, but my mind is blown. This is, in my mind, by every stretch of the definition, a 10 out of 10. I can see we can make the argument where, he has tracks in here, such as Mural, such as Prisoner 1 and 2, such as Deliver, which are a little bit deeper, and that they're a little bit packed more with intense lyricism, intense poetry. But then it's also nice to have that differentiation with tracks like Body of Work and tracks like No Scratches, which have like some choruses and are easier to unpack. Even Deliver, I guess you can consider in that. You can take it out of the other category and put it in that, where it's at least somewhat easier to unpack. And if you had an album strictly full of tracks like Mural, which are insanely dense, like this one, you could spend weeks unpacking every single line, and there'd still be stuff in there. But that differentiation is nice, and I feel like it would be a disservice to rate this anything below a 10. When you have those few tracks where they're just pure gold mines, they're incredibly dense, and they're just so good. I think there's something to be said also with the order of the tracks in relation to the instrumentals, right? So you have summer, fall, and spring, which are all, they feel very free. There's children laughing, there's children playing, there's birds chirping. It's very uplifting. It is interesting that there's winter, and obviously winter is the season you associate with death. It's the season you associate with, being barren of life. And that one was very dark. You could hear the harsh winds in it. It's interesting to see like the tracks around it, right? So you got No Scratches, which is like basically just before breaking off a relationship. So you can like assume maybe there, the relationship broke, and then you go through this winter. It's this dark period. Then you go through some tracks which are extremely, dark. You got Deliver, which is about, a neighborhood that's very tough. Pizza Man won't even deliver the houses. The peace of man does not exist. All there is death. So that relates to winter. You have Madonna, which is comparing, the Virgin Mary to mothers in poor and rough neighborhoods where it's unsafe and where there's death all about. So I think the placement of the tracks, there's something there at least to consider. But again, all in all, if you really wanted to unpack this, it would take weeks of studying, like legit studying, because this is poetry. This is poetry at its most extreme. But yeah, I mean, I gave most of my thoughts throughout the project on each track, so I think I'll just call it there. But I will say, don't even have to recommend anymore. I'm going to go through his entire discography. I'll start with, I think Food and Liquor was the first one, or whatever the first. I'll go through Spotify. I'll go through each of his albums. He's deserved it now. I've had 2 projects where he's completely blown me away. That being Drogas Wave and now Tetsuo and Youth. Jesus Christ, Mike. But yeah, so I'm just going to go through his whole discography that he's released commercially in chronological order from here on out. And I've been incredibly blessed to listen to this. If you do have more recommendations beyond that, you can throw that in the comments, but it's probably gonna be a while for me to get to it because I'm gonna do this first. Just go through all his albums. I'm honestly excited because a lot of the big name artists who who I know who are deep and have a lot of really insightful thoughts in their lyrics, I've listened to a lot of those. So it's really exciting to have an artist who I know is dope and who has stuff that I have not listened to. So I'm just excited on this journey. And if you are too, if you enjoyed this video, first off, like and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. Comment, and let me know if you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, if there's shit that you didn't like about it, let me know. But yeah, my mind is fried. This thing has been incredible, and I'm so blessed to have started this journey with you guys. And I wouldn't have checked this out if it wasn't for you guys in the comments in the drill music design video. I'll stop it there. Thank you again so much for watching the video. Y'all have a blessed day now, alright? Peace.